Hey everybody, I'm here today with Astrology Alert. I'm
Hi,
going to
everyone.
read. If some of you folks don't recognize me, I'm your hostess with the mostest. Andre and I share time, sometimes his show, sometimes my show. But we were just talking about, I had gotten sort of a panic email. You guys don't be panicking about, oh my God, this astrologer sees Trump being a winner based on his chart. And you took a look at it.
I did. Yeah. And the first thing I'd say about that is that astrology aside, it seems to me that some readers that I respect, such as yourself, Kim, Lena, don't see it like that at all. And that counts for quite a bit in my understanding of things. And then if I, put it through my filter, I've said plenty about this around how Trump's chart is working, how Biden's chart is working. And, I don't want to get into a thing of putting someone down, how they interpret something. I will just say that I don't agree. And time will tell. I don't agree at all. And I probably will put together a video explaining in more detail, even though in some ways I've said it already, but I'll address it because this particular person is going out of their way to point to their detail, the way that they read it. They say, look at this, and this. And so then I can address that and explain why that's not how it works, to my understanding.
Okay.
And then to each his own on that. Part of it, by the way, is that this individual has not done a single political video until now. All her other stuff. Now, part of what goes on with politics and astrology is you have to be in touch with the politics and you have to be looking at all the patterns. To my mind, just diving in and saying things without that is more likely than not to lead you into a mistaken, perception of things. Like, for example, look at what happens in politics. Even I've seen this, right? Poll after poll, Biden bad, Biden bad. And then people go to vote and they vote Democratic. That's a little weird. Voting Democratic is the actual poll, to my understanding,
well,
right?
Just this morning, did you notice our Joe in the morning is really on it lately?
Exactly, yeah.
When he talks.
He's very astute. Joe, who is an ex-Republican, is one of the most astute commentators out there. He almost never gets it wrong because he knows how to see the real numbers. Right? For example, he pointed out this morning, look at this thing in New Hampshire. Biden's approval rating is horrible, 37 approved, 53 disapprove. Then there's a poll, if you have to pick between Biden and Trump, and then he wins by 5 points. That's weird, right? Because why? Now you're comparing. And as soon as you compare,
I don't know if it was him, but it was somebody, because I was dozing in and out. Somebody said, this time a year ago, before the Obama was re-voted in for his second term, he was on the cover of Time magazine with like a 17% approval rating. And they were like, here's your has-been. The last days of Obama. This was a year before the vote. And it was on Time magazine. And he said, there you go.
Yeah.
Do not listen to these polls.
No, and in terms of Biden's trajectory, I've said this in a recent video that the reason 23 overall, and especially the last months of 23 are so difficult for him is because Saturn is in a difficult place. And there's no politician with Saturn pressuring that will not feel problems, because at that level, you're subject to all these forces. What can Biden do about the fact that Hamas goes nuts and does what they did? And, then he's caught in the middle of this thing, and there are good points on both sides. And it's really, really difficult to do anything, without angering someone. And so that's part of the right. But then what happens is Saturn keeps moving forward. That's the whole art of astrology, is where does the planet go? Next year, Saturn is much better for Biden, because once it gets beyond these degrees in the spring and beyond, then it's actually supporting instead of being in his face. That counts for a lot. Otherwise, astrology wouldn't work. It would just be like always guessing.
When Biden was coming up, I found these two astrologers that had 238,000 subscribers, and it was two men. I think they might have been brothers, and they had their computers, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And they said, look at the chart, look at these charts. Trump is a landslide. He will go in, no problem. Trump is going to win. And
Okay. Well, my answer to
Trump
that
didn't
is,
win. This is the last time when
oh,
Biden.
the last time. You talk about the last time. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no. And in fact, there were people that they picked up on, something that is somewhat true. We have to admit. Someone said, look, you Democratic readers, you all pull for the Democrats, and
That's true.
I think they were saying the Vedic guys from India, because they're people that watch them, they like the Republicans, so they're giving you a Republican prediction. The only thing I'll say about that is, because this, by the way, came up in this video as well. Person said, it's important to be objective. It's important to put aside what you might believe yourself. I agree, but here's another theory as well, which I said in 2020. I just happen to be lucky that I think this guy is a complete idiot and a major danger, and I think he's going to lose. And I continue to think that. I'm sorry that that's the way it worked out. It's my good fortune. I don't know what to say.
Andre, that's why I'm stuck to you like glue. You were one of the first. Whose show were you on? Debbie? You were on somebody's show.
Oh, I think I
hadn't
was
met
on
you yet.
I think I was on Black and Orange Tarot on
wonderful, wonderful. And you said he's always gotten away with everything, which you were right. He's like my girlfriend. She does charts. She says, actually, Trump has a good chart. He's got a lucky chart. He could have been somebody, but he just kept destroying it. So he could have been somebody, and he was getting away. Everything slid off of him. And you said, watch this. When did you say the month? You said this month it'll begin.
Well, in the spring of 23, but then accelerating in August of 23, because that's when the progressions change. Yeah. That's astrology. And
that's when I said, yep, that's what's happening.
And part of it is to also, with astrology, is because planets work in ranges. You have no way of knowing. Someone throws a chart at you, you have to calibrate what the person is doing, because Trump has a lot of 12th sign planets. That can be a very spiritual person, ironically. He has zero connection to that. He's doing the bottom end of that, which is criminality. That's where all the crooks and thieves and people that get imprisoned. Even if he doesn't go to actual prison, he's going to get sequestered. He's going to get, encased in some way and blocked. That's the logic of it, based on the way he's played, because he doesn't respect any rules. He doesn't respect other people. He just does it all for himself. Society resists that. It's like society.
And he doesn't care about these poor people that adore him. He absolutely does not care.
Does not care. No, not in the least.
So what were you picking up on China?
Well, on China, what I saw is so backtrack a bit. The chart for China that seems to make the most sense is this reference to October 1st, 1949, 3 p.m. Mao takes the stage and announces the formation of this new thing. From that point forward, a bit of a disagreement around the exact time, because a lot of astrologers use 3:15 p.m., but to me, it makes more sense, this other reference that I found, that 3:01, 3:02, because it kind of started talking and then, he announced it, and then that to me makes the most sense. So when you do that chart, you can see pretty clearly why the relations between China and the US are quite frigid now, because China's under Saturn pressure, and you can even link it to the, if you combine the two countries, it's like a competition. I mean, this is not going to end anytime soon.
Yeah.
It's going to be, particularly as we go into the Pluto and Aquarius period, which is from 23 to 2042. I mean, we're talking many, many years. Not all the time, but there'll be points there when it could get quite tense around just having a very different attitude to something that's happening, right? In the world.
Yeah, but what's his name? Xi
Jinping, yeah.
They just agreed to have our military communicate.
Yeah, right.
That's
exactly.
huge.
So what I was getting at with that is that despite those potential points of tension, first of all, I think Scarborough was right when he said, seems like Biden is the only adult in the room. He does what a normal person would do, is, hey, let's dial down the rhetoric. I mean, I know you guys were flying balloons up there and all that. Sure. But both sides do things. So now they're pulling back on the tension. but I don't know that. I mean, to me, this is not like it's going to be perfect, easy peasy.
Kumbaya. You're not feeling kumbaya.
No, no way. Because even if you put aside the astrology, the odds of that politically are super low. But the astrology also points to a lot of caution and a lot of suspicion, and
Yeah.
it's because the systems are very different, and they're trying to hang
Well,
on. But by the way, they're also, one of the things about China is that they're undergoing a lot of change also. So they're more likely as a country to undergo a big, super major change in the next couple of years than the US is, based on where that Pluto.
Well, their economy is struggling, and his numbers, if you can believe it, they actually do polls, are really low. Nobody likes them.
Although I didn't see though in his when I looked, but first of all, there's no birth time, which takes away a big part of it. There's only a birthday, so I got that. Doesn't look to me like he would lose his job or anything. I think, do you see that? Because
no, I didn't see that.
I don't see that. So then, but the funny thing about this guy, this Xi Jinping guy, is that whenever I get a sense of his energy, he seems like he must be a great faker, because he appears to be a reasonable person, even though he's a dictator, obviously, with the system that he's in, but he doesn't transmit, like, when you look at a guy like Trump, he transmits evil. You just look at his eyes and he's got this weird thing that takes you aback. I don't get that from Xi, I get a sense that I think he's not crazed and, unreasonable. So,
well, he's there right now about money.
Yeah,
I feel like he came to, the fact that they said this is huge that Biden even got this meeting, but he's here now because of money.
Yeah, well, they're in a struggle for sure. They're in a struggle.
So I think the U.S. is going to open something up for them or help them, because we were cutting them off for a long time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that would make sense. Sure, that would make sense. Yeah.
Tuberville, did you take a look-see at him?
Yeah, he is. This is the Virgo story, right? Virgo politician, the period you're in until next year, the middle of the year, there's enough Jupiter support to keep things going. But already we're seeing that even before that, he's getting a lot of pushback, because that's in the chart as well. There are other problems in there. And so I don't think I think it's going to be pushed back. And by the middle of next year, he's like a non-entity, someone that.
Yeah, well, they're bringing a whole bunch of 367 people to get an upgrade, military, and they're going to have to get 60%. And I see 60% voting yes. The only thing they can't do is your 4-star generals and stuff, but they're going to do upgrades on 300 all at once. This is, I think, Amy, what's her name? Klovac or Amy something. She brought it up, and it looks good, because the Republicans are mad at them.
Yeah, they are. They are for good reason, because this is the problem with in politics. If you can't realize what the bigger issue is, he's all in on this, the military's abortion policies, whatever. And then he's neglecting that the military's first job is to do military work to protect the country, and he's getting in the way. So, and not to mention, by the way, that is not a good issue for these people, and they don't seem to get it.
They don't get it. That's the sleeping giant. That was the one that was going to destroy them.
Exactly. And that's going to haunt them in 2024, because Democrats are going to bring it up. And now Democrats have figured out that instead of calling it choice, they call it freedom, which is taking away the Republicans are always talking about freedom while they take away things, right? So now Democrats can point it out. And that is a very potent type of argument, because you can see that in red states, in Ohio, they got the result in the past, in Kansas and Kentucky. This is not a good thing. And the more they play up to that, the more they'll get a greater share of the women vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you see George Santos? He's already announced he's not going to run again, but will he be kicked out? Because they found out that he was using campaign funds to go on vacations. He was just blatantly crazy.
Yeah, he's kind of in the zone. Like Santos, I'm actually amazed he survived the first Pluto sojourn through there in the spring. But it's going there again. I would be amazed if he made it into the summer, and if he makes it beyond, like he actually, because don't forget they need all the votes. They're so hard up for
But
votes.
there's Republicans right now saying he needs to go.
Exactly. So one possibility is between now and spring he's gone, or if he hangs on, all that's going to happen to this guy is he's going to probably go to prison for a period of time for what he's done, and he's not going to be a congressman, and someone else will get elected, probably a Democrat next time in that district.
Yeah, but it's a year to go before they vote again, a year and whatever. So he's saying, I'm not going to run again.
Yeah, sure. I know you're not going to run again.
So how can people prepare for the second Saturn return?
How can they prepare? Well, that depends on how far ahead of the Saturn return you're talking. Well, the second Saturn return is a point in your life in your it's age 59, in that range. And it's a year when a big chapter in your life closes and then a new direction emerges. And so the more that, let's put it this way, the less in touch you are with your own true sense of spirit and what you're doing in your life, the more difficult the return is, because it'll just show you all the problems of your previous 30-year cycle, because the first return is when you're 29 or so, 29, 30.
Yeah.
So then if you're preparing, start to become more aware of what your true purpose in life is, right? It's that simple. Otherwise, you'll do it during the return and it'll just hurt more.
Right.
It's like that. And by the way, at 59, more than at 29, if you've been neglecting your health, it tends to be a lot harder on you, because those years, a lot of people don't make it past those years because they've been abusing their body a lot. And then when the Saturn return comes, it's like literally the end, and they can't get through it. Or they could be in a situation where they get through, but their health is hampered, and then they have a really difficult time with the next 30 years after that, if they get that far, right? Because the Saturn return is, it's always 30 years.
So, okay, this wasn't the one I wanted. Hold on one second.
By the way, I wanted to comment on something.
Yes.
Remember that you and I exchanged texts back in October, and you had said that your sense of Mike Johnson was that you'd go to the middle. And that's exactly what happened. Good for you. That was a really good call, because, and I said, this guy is really MAGA. He's doing MAGA things, but he knows he's going to need Democrats. And he went and did it. Yeah. And he got 100 almost Republicans opposed him. So that verifies that exactly.
And now they're talking about getting rid of him too.
Yeah. And when you look at his chart, the thing with this guy though, is that it kind of goes in steps. If he gets to the middle of January without getting thrown out, things improve a little bit. But then in the middle of the year, like around the spring and forward, at minimum, he gets totally blocked and he can't get anything done. It becomes more difficult.
That's when I was feeling we might end up having some sort of shutdown.
It's possible. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, because the Republicans in the House, they're just determined to, follow these Freedom Caucus guys, and they're not interested in governing. They're not.
They just want to blow up. They want it to shut down.
They just want to blow everything up.
Trump is furious at Johnson right now. He wanted him to blow it up. And I saw Beavis and Butthead Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene, hey, listen, I would have loved to have told people last time she wasn't going to win, but it showed she was going to win. So I had to announce it. People were upset about that, but.
Yeah, no, this is the thing, that there'll always be kind of a number of people in Congress that, despite being what they are, I mean, case in point, there's a guy like Ted Cruz who you think, why does anybody vote for this person? But that's because the state he's in, and he's not easy to defeat because he's in Texas. If you put him in New York or Washington, then it's easier. But
Texas is going to change up eventually.
It will eventually, yeah. I just don't know whether we can say that with any confidence for the next election, though.
I know. Also, he cheats, by the way.
Who? Cruz?
Cruz.
Yeah, well, the whole lot of them. I mean, this whole crew. Look at McCarthy. He almost certainly elbows the guy in the back, And then he says, no, I didn't. And if I had, I would have knocked him out. You know, like you're like that other guy, the MMA fighter who was trying to challenge the Teamster guy, which by the way, I thought Joe Scarborough was pretty funny when he said, I don't think you should be challenging the head of the Teamsters Union.
Yeah, because they'll
Well,
be
fine.
waiting for him to come home.
Oh, I know, because that you're not just challenging one person, you're challenging the union. And I'm not sure if what he's getting at is that, you know, that's a lot of tough guys belong
Yeah,
to those. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So,
So is there something positive to look forward to in 2024? Many psychics are talking about a major event will happen. Well, there's always major events happening. Can Andre see it in the chart?
well, 2024 for starters is, you know, it's the election year. So, provided you don't mind putting on your seatbelt and, you know, weathering what's the storm that's going to come in, then it'll be interesting. But I don't know about it being great, other than if it turns out well, and I think it will. It's
I
just
think
that
it'll turn out well,
I
but
think
that's
there's,
towards the very end of the year.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's probably the most major focus in 2024 for everyone,
Okay.
at least in the U.S. anyway.
Odyssey says, wow, Pluto is can't even say it, back into Aquarius in January 2024. It will actually be back in Capricorn at the time of November 2024 elections.
Mhm.
What is Andre's sense of how the energy field will play out?
Bad for Trump in late Capricorn. By the way, it's bad for Trump even before that in the early part of 24. It's just that at that point, that's not a good position for Pluto in late Capricorn because of the way it lines up with his chart, right? Among other
Interesting.
things. But
Interesting.
but it also, you see, that's the final little bit, 2 months, end of the year, Capricorn. After that, it'll be in Aquarius for the next almost 20 years, or maybe a little more than 20 years.
Okay, Diane says, what can I expect when Pluto opposes Saturn on my Aquarius ascendant, squared to Sun? Already had a bunch of falls and surgery, EGADS.
Well, an aspect like that is, you could say, it's a major change and transformation. You know, the idea of your life changing, and it will change you no matter what. But if you want to have any kind of control, if you say, well, I've had accidents, whenever Saturn is involved, you have to be more conscious. You have to be more present. Look both ways before you cross the street. Mind your step. Be really serious about that, because if you're not serious about it, that's how you'll, whatever, break your foot, fall over. Saturn and being unconscious is a really bad mix. That's when it'll hit you every time. But of course, this also links to other parts of your life. Whatever you've been ignoring, you know, and not dealing with and so forth, Saturn is the reality check. It always comes in and goes, hey, what about this? Like, for example, you're not paying your bills, maybe you didn't do your taxes, whatever, something that you should be keeping in order, and then Pluto can come in and really give you a hard time, right? But
Yeah.
bottom line, always think positive and see it as, this is a point when I can change in a big way, and then afterwards I'll be all the better for it. But if I said to you it would be easy with a Pluto opposite Saturn, then I would be lying, because it's not. It's challenging. Pluto opposite Saturn, by the way, was the mid 1960s and 9/11. So that tells you what kind of change, you know, that can bring in. It
Yeah.
is intense, you know.
Libby wants to know, how does Saturn affect those born under Capricorn, since Saturn rules Capricorn?
Well, it means they're hopefully they're more in touch with it, because there's a direct link. But you can't make generalizations. You have to see the individual chart and find out what the person is doing with that Saturn, right? And so, I mean, think about it. Every 12th person on the planet Earth is going to be a Capricorn. So there's no way that they're all going to do the same thing with that. There's no way.
And then also the aspects.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like every 12th person is Capricorn, and then within that, another layer of every 12th will have Saturn in Capricorn.
Yeah.
And it'll just depend, right?
Right.
You would normally say that's okay because Saturn and Capricorn like each other, but don't make any rules like that, or you'll discover exceptions constantly. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Hawaii Bound said, how will Aquarius fare these next 6 months? Because I know someone in the sign and there seems to be a lot of ups and downs for them lately, including the past year. Any advice?
Well, see, it depends what Aquarius, though, because Aquarius has 30 degrees, and where are you in the 30 degrees? If you're in the very early part of that, then Pluto is paying you a visit. It's very different than if you're at the end, because that Pluto won't get there till 20 years from now. That's one level to look at for sure. The other thing would be, though, that for Aquarius, if you're going to say something generalized, then next year, between the middle of the year next year and the middle of the following year, which is 2025, that's Jupiter and Gemini. Jupiter and Gemini aligns well with Aquarius. And
Okay.
those type of years, which happen like every 3 years, it'll be in the better place than in not such a good place. That year is better. It helps to solve problems, because in a trine, it's easier. Then right now, by the way, right now, Aquarius, the mistake Aquarius can make right now, Jupiter being in Taurus, is to, give way to excess and just spend too much money, eat too much, like lose your discipline, which is what because Jupiter doesn't like working. Jupiter's game is, where's the party? where can I have fun? So it's the idea, well, I'll just do it for myself now to feel better, but then you have to maybe carry debt, maybe extra weight, things like that, right? So you have to be
Right.
careful with the period you're in right now if you're Aquarius.
Did you take a look at MTG lately?
I haven't looked at her, but I know in my mind, I know her chart because I've looked at it plenty. She is not in a good place because she's a 6 degrees Gemini, and Saturn is in there. It's up to her eyeballs all the way until the spring, and she's very bad at doing Saturn. She has no self-discipline.
No.
She has you almost could say no common sense. She's fond of, because she's a Gemini likes to communicate, right? So she constantly goes and gives speeches in the Congress and says the most stupid things. I mean, where the other person will say, well, what do you mean? Like the FBI guy was stunned because she said something like, what was the thing that she put up a poster and he said, I'm sorry, I don't know what that is, right? But she said something, look, I tweeted it. And he said, well, I don't go to Twitter. And like, according to her, he should be following her, to figure out what's going on. God help us, the head of the FBI following MTG around while he defends the law and order in the country, right? So she does this constantly and then gets ridiculed. And the thing is, when you're under Saturn, it's not going to go well because it just won't go well.
How about Matt Gates?
Matt Gates is another one that, no, he's a Taurus, but he has a really important point. I think it was his Mercury or something in his chart that the Saturn is going through also for this period that we're in. This is why we had said, remember in prior talks, that they were not going to get their way, which they're running into a brick wall because they elect this new guy and he does the same thing to them that McCarthy did to them, right?
They were
And there they are.
furious about it.
Yeah.
Furious.
Exactly. They're furious because what he did was knock out a speaker. Now, who said that the Who song, the welcome to the new speaker, same as the old speaker, that song that said, welcome to the new boss, same as the old boss, because they're dealing with energies that, just because you're different, they're still there. They're the same thing, same problems. You got to pass budgets. There's the Ukraine issue. There's the Israel issue.
You don't want the military not to get paid.
Precisely.
But
So,
you said the new speaker was going to end up being stuck in January. That might be when they don't give a good budget and they're showing their ass.
yeah, very possibly. And if not, then as we go into the spring and forward, it becomes harder for him to get anything done. He's then prey to the confusion, including that, even though I don't know his birth time, and he actually has a pretty good chart. It's just without the time, it's less complicated than McCarthy's, but there's enough there to get bounced if things don't work out. And how are they going to work out for these guys? Because they're totally split.
He's weird because he doesn't have a bank account and all that. There's something weird with it.
Oh, he's very strange. This guy's really strange with his religiosity, and then this thing, he's doing a panel talking about sending things to his son about watching each other's porn, and I'm thinking, what kind of a politician are you? Why do you talk about this?
I know, it's
People are
crazy.
nuts.
It's crazy.
It makes no sense to me at all.
It's
It's like,
ugly. It's like Trump talking about wishing he could date his daughter and stuff. It's just
yeah,
ugly.
yeah, just the kind of thing that if you're a public person, you're not being serious when you talk like that. It's not
Right.
a good thing. So, anyways.
So let's just look at Trump real quick. What's the last time you looked? Can you give us some maybe happening coming up?
Well, I mean, Trump, it's basically this, there's this tsunami, this wave building into the middle of next year, almost like precisely in tandem with the way we know Jack Smith's trial is due for March. And I don't see, do you see that being changed? I don't see that, even
I
if I
don't
just,
see it being changed.
so then, I mean, the timing is set up perfectly for very, very bad energy. Not to mention, and this is really important, I've said this many times, that, and this is one of the points around, countering that chart, that person's thing and all that, is that he's really a grave health risk problems because of the energy in 2024, right?
Okay.
It's very
Well,
risky.
you can't go around that angry without something blowing.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if the health event doesn't happen, the angle that has, among other things, a strong connection to health is never a good angle for a politician to be under, right? But to give you an example of how dangerous that aspect is, right? In my recent class, I did the chart of the Teddy Roosevelt. He was the president in 1900, 1901.
Yeah.
And what you see there is he had this really terrible thing happen to him, right? And it was under the same aspect as Trump is facing next year. In fact, Trump has a double hit of this, which was what happened to Teddy. And Teddy, his wife and his mother died on the same day under that aspect.
Whoa.
You can just see it. It's right there. I mean, it's very obvious. In astrology, you look at the numbers of where the planets are, and it's
What
clear as
sign
a
was
bell.
Teddy?
Scorpio.
Okay.
Same as Biden. He was actually Teddy was a Republican progressive. He was very against the, more conservative approach, because back then the Republicans were different than they are today. The Republicans coming out of the 1800s, Lincoln, they were the progressive party. It was the Democrats that were the more
jerks.
more racist and so forth. That kind of flipped over time, but around then he was the progressive voice, and that's what he would get into fights with other politicians about. He was backing some guy who became too conservative for him, so then he took away his backing. And but in any case, he was really successful around. He came in because the president died, then they put him in power, but then he won the next election on his own.
Right.
And yeah, so, but I thought I'd
The
mention
other
that.
thing is he's the one that saved the American buffalo. One of the people that saved the American buffalo. Teddy
I think
Roosevelt went to Quantum Parker's house.
I think I
chief.
read that. Yeah.
Yeah. He loved the natives and he loved the buffalo. And they nearly wiped them out. The white man nearly wiped all of them out.
Yeah, no, he was a real character, but to me, the type of person that he would be aghast at the way the Republicans behave, because he, Scorpio on the high end of Scorpio hates lying and
They hate
untruth.
injustice. Yeah.
Injustice and lying, they have a strong radar for that. And no, that doesn't mean there aren't going to be corrupt Scorpios, of course, because that's the problem.
And there's not, that also means there's not Scorpios that lie, but just don't want you lying to them.
Yeah, no, and it, like with any sign, people ask that question, well, what is this sign like? What does that sign like? It depends, because every single planet, sign, everything, high and low end. It's just life. It's like everything has two sides. There's no way to say.
My first horoscope book was Linda Goodman.
Oh yeah,
I used to read the horoscopes and about the menses, of course. If so, you love a Scorpio or a Cancer. The general aspect was good, but like you said, there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know that.
That you
How's
don't
that
know.
Scorpio and the dark energy? That joke that how many Scorpios do you need to change a light bulb? And the answer is none. They prefer staying in the dark.
So last but not least, let's just take a look at Biden again.
Okay, so Biden, it's interesting that person's interpretation is contrasted by someone that I'm going to contact this woman because when I was away, I saw this other woman do a video on Biden and Trump, and her analysis was pretty close to the way I would put it, right? And the way she ended the analysis, she did all this thing and she said, yeah, look, Biden has these pressures. And in fact, Biden has some health pressures too in his chart.
Yeah.
I think my feeling is it's less threatening than Trump's, but a threat is a threat. So
Yeah.
we'll grant that, right? She goes through all that and then she said, the way I would call this is Biden has more than enough to win because in the end, his chart is stronger than
Stronger.
Trump's. That was the bottom line. And that's how I interpret it because Biden is now under pressure from Saturn. Saturn is the most dangerous that way. Next year, the thing he's dealing with is there's a Uranus opposition and there's a Pluto square. But this you see quite a bit anyway. I remember back when Obama was trying to get elected, eventually he got in a landslide, but he went through some tough times in the middle of that with hard transits, right? So it's to be expected what he's going to deal with too, especially if he's running against Trump or even running against MAGA, right? It's a crazy period. So he's got some pressures, but what is most helpful to Biden is that, yes, Uranus, Pluto are challenging, but Saturn gets easier. In fact, Saturn becomes supportive. Remember I was saying to you that we may see the irony of all ironies. We'll reach the spring of 24 and suddenly, instead of being old, he's said to be a wise man, who really understands how to do things, which would be funny. In a good way, of course. And the other aspect that is really helpful to Biden that does not help Trump. This is the case of Trump. Now it's good. It's definitely helping him with his popularity. The more we get into next year, it switches to popularity dropping while Biden's increases and stabilizes. Neptune for Trump is a big problem, where for Biden is very supportive. And so, of course, yes, you can say, look, his approval is low and all that. All I can tell you, like what Scarborough said, this guy they're always saying Sleepy Joe, and then he keeps winning elections, right? That's the bottom
And he
line.
just got a meeting with President Z.
Oh, yeah, well, of course, yeah. Although I think, maybe you identified it properly, that maybe it's more important for Xi than for Biden in a way, because you said.
Oh, I felt it. I don't think he would have met with him if he thought he didn't need him.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways.
I think he needs some help from the United States.
Yeah, no, in the U.S.
And their population is decreasing because nobody's having children. Even the United States population is decreasing.
No, yeah, I mean, the U.S., I actually think, I know this is going to sound nuts because China is a bigger threat to the U.S. by being a much bigger economy because Russia has a piddling economy. But I feel like it's probably easier to work with China than with Russia. Russian energy, they are just stubbornly, and it's not even communist as much as blatantly like oligarchic piracy, lawlessness. They're like a mobster regime, I think.
Right. And when Putin was having those meetings with him, what do you call him? G or Yi?
She.
Xi.
She.
When Putin was having meetings with him, that was just for the public. That was just to make him look good.
Yeah.
Because I don't see them offering him any money, maybe some military tanks or something, but I don't see him really helping him out. Let me tell you, China's a lot more careful than Russia. China doesn't want to create, even though they do things to try to cause an escalation out at the sea, because they think they own the waters.
Yeah, well, they think, but just because you think it, I mean, this is where the U.S., people will say we should just stay home and not get involved. The world isn't like that anymore. The world is all connected now. You can't do that. Everything happening everywhere affects everything else. So that's why, this idea, just let Ukraine flail around. That's not a good plan. It's not a good plan.
And let me tell you something else. Putin told the press, yeah, everything Trump have, I've already seen. All those records, those confidential, he knows all of it.
Sure.
So he even acted like it was no big deal. Yeah, I've been there. I already saw it all.
Yeah. No, and by the way, these guys too, they're friends with each other until it changes. If for some reason it's to Putin's advantage, he'll drop them like a hot potato.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
The way Trump drops people, right and left. I mean, all these lawyers are turning on him because he didn't help them out. Like that woman, Jenna Ellis, she didn't have any money. And if he were
didn't
smart
care.
at all, he would have said, hey, I'll send you some money. Just keep your mouth shut. He didn't. So they just
Yeah,
started
he's like,
talking.
yeah, no, you figure out. But I don't see Rudy turning against Trump. I don't
No.
see that.
Then where do you see Rudy going?
I think
Which
he's going to die. I don't think he's going to live to be very old, much
Oh,
older.
really? Yeah, so you don't see him in prison, though?
He might go to prison, but I see him just faltering, just faltering. Let me tell you something. This is my hit, and we'll see, you guys. By the time he goes to jail, like right now, he owes a whole bunch of money to the woman that was assaulted by Trump for defamation. But by the time he goes to jail, he has nothing. And it'll be so bad, he might even turn and say, okay, I'm ready to talk. And they're like, yeah, no, we don't need you, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it
what
makes a
I'm
lot of
getting.
sense. Yeah, no, it does. And by the way, if I could add something to that, is that this is the classic case of a person that we know this from news reports that he's an alcoholic. He's probably been really rough on his body. You often see the decline in people's lives is because their physical energy declines, and then they can't think straight. They don't
They
make
can't
good
think straight.
decisions.
Yeah.
And to me, both Rudy and Trump, they're already in states of dementia. They behave like people with no common sense. Why do you think Trump forgets who he's talking about? He'll start saying, I'm
And that
balloting
he's
against
working,
Obama.
he beat Obama, or he's
I know, exactly. So normally a person wouldn't make those mistakes, but both of them in different ways are rough on their body. And the older you are, the more you know.
and if Saturn's around and you're not paying attention, you'll run right into a brick wall.
Exactly. And Giuliani's, you could have seen it prior to as the 2020 election was ending, and there were all those aspects coming in 21, 22, 23. They were going to take a toll, but I guess he must have thought that he was doing the right thing by being close to this craziness, right? Which, by the way, that's where Bill Barr is much smarter. You can criticize the guy. He saw clearly, I don't like this. I think in part, Barr knew, okay, this is BS, but he probably thought, I don't want to go to jail for this guy. No,
Yeah, I
I'm not
mean, there's a
interested.
lot of things Barr did that was underhanded, but
Oh, totally.
that was hands down insurrection.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think Barr understands definitely more than Giuliani. Giuliani seems to have forgotten that the U.S. legal system is pretty strong. There
Yeah,
is law and order. I think Barr realized, like Cipollone. Remember when Cipollone said to whoever it was, Cassidy or whatever, he says, we got to not do this because we're going to get charged with everything under the sky, right? Because he knows that, there are a lot of prosecutors waiting to pounce. And you can tell me that doesn't count for anything. We'll see. We'll see whether it counts for anything or not, right? When Trump
okay.
is facing down massive amounts of Saturn in 2024, at the worst possible time. No, not a good plan.
Not a good plan.
No.
But I hope he hangs in there, because I think if he goes up against Biden, we'll win for sure.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing. Remember that they were saying today in the analysis that not that you can trust any poll anyway, because polls, you have to wait a long time to really make any sense out of that. But they were saying that in all those matchups, Trump does the worst against Biden than people like Nikki Haley and DeSantis. Because why? Because Trump is abnormal. He's just not a normal person, and he scares people. And the way you get people to vote is scare them. Put something
There
in
are
front
the
of them.
people who say, let it burn. Those are the ones that'll vote for him. Yeah, let it burn. Let it burn.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
want chaos. But fortunately, there's more people who want to live and have a good, safe life.
It's always like that, isn't it? Always the numbers. Whatever you say, if you tell me that you're in a room and you tell me, look, these 4 people really like me, and I tell you, yeah, but those other 6 don't like you, you have a problem. It's 6-4, right?
There you
So
go.
that's where it's going to go.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. And next week, oh wait, next week is Thanksgiving. Should we meet the week after?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do
Okay.
that. Then we can bring our Thanksgiving stories,
We'll
depending
bring
on
our turkey stories
what they
about
are.
what I did with the carving knife. So, all right. You guys take care. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.